Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
More and more, I hear people talking about energy, work, and healing, and specifically Reiki. I don't know what's going on, but I'm loving the swell of metaphysical action that's happening, and especially a younger demographic is adopting Reiki. Like there are classes, there are even clubs in schools now where it's filled. You know, in high school, it's filled with students that want to learn about Reiki. It's so cool. She is a proficient expert at that. She's a master. And Annie Atwood joins us. Redbootsreiki.com, right?
Yes, redbootsreiki.com.
Good to have you back with us. How you doing, Annie?
I am doing really well. And I also just want to point out that even small children as young as 5 can be attuned to Reiki.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's
all
often
you need
said
to do is be able to sit still with your feet on the floor, which is hard for some of them, but
yeah, I mean, there's some kids that can do that. You have to bribe them with something sometimes, but whatever
they
works.
were never in my class.
Yeah, right. Yep, you former teacher over here.
Yeah,
but
I got the actual one.
They often say that if a younger demographic adopt something or is into it, then it starts to swell to the masses. I mean, take a look at Facebook back in the day. That's where it started. And now Facebook is for old people because younger demographic move past that. They're on Snap and also TikTok. But it's nice to see that more and more people are talking about Reiki and energy healing. So today we're going to talk about protected versus restrictive. In relation to energy work. I kind of have an idea what that is, but please fill me in.
Okay, so all energy wants to move. It is a current and it really wants to move, and it's an exchange. And so we want to make sure that it has freedom to move while being protected for that without being restricted. So you want to feel very safe, and that you have your nest where you can look out on the world and you feel protected, but not restricted. So if I have, my beautiful nest, I'm free to go and come back. And nobody is saying, oh, you're only allowed to walk in and out of these doors at this time of day, or you're only allowed to do that if. Anytime there's a big if, you start to feel restricted. And so many eating plans have a lot of restrictions. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Instead of saying, hey, let's come up with the best combination of an exchange between what goes into your body and how it fuels you. And so you want to make sure that your energy is fueling you properly. Is that what you thought I was going to say?
Kind of to a point, yeah. So it's getting there where you, in terms of your energy, that you're not letting bad energy in or things influence you, but also it's not like you're hiding in your house and not going around people.
Right. And one of the differences is who's making those decisions about what can happen. And are they guidelines that benefit the group, or are they personal things that only benefit you? So if you have an allergy, that a certain food is toxic to you, you're going to adhere to, I'm not going to ingest that because it's going to harm you. But, and this is a big one in schools, especially around allergen-free tables. Do you set the guideline that nobody can have eggs, peanuts, etc. for the entire school body? Or do you teach the children how to be safe and monitor their own what goes into them?
Okay.
And it goes also for campuses. So my children went to a boarding school, and they turned off the internet at 11. There was just so that the children would get a good night's sleep. In the, I think the freshman dorm, they had houses and years, and I could never get it straight. But in the freshman dorm, they would turn it off at 10. And then as the children got older, they got an extra hour. But there was no internet during that time. There was no, you couldn't have your phone during study hall. And they had little baskets at the end of the hallway, and everybody had to put their phone in. And that was to not only protect them from outside influences when they wanted them studying, but also to free them up and be less restrictive so that they could really focus. And so sometimes for teenagers, things feel really restrictive. And I get it. I did not like rules when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I went out of my way to break them. So I get it. But now I see that a lot of the guidelines put in were for protection so that you could, still be able to move about, but there were protective things. I grew up in Massachusetts. And so we had, when we got our license, we couldn't drive after, I think, midnight or something, unless it was for a job or an emergency. And that was to keep the beginning drivers off the roads when people were coming home from bars. They never said that, but if you think about it, why else would you do that other than we're supposed to be home and asleep? But that's where you're going to get, and I'm old. This was way before a lot of the drunk driving laws were in place. And so they just had kind of restricted licenses to help you get up to speed. And so if anybody's feeling stuck with their energy, just think, is this a restriction I'm putting on myself? Is this a protection that is no longer necessary?
How do you tell the difference between the two?
How it feels. I'm glad you asked that. How it feels. When you feel beautifully supported in your path on something, let me just use weightlifting, for example. When you're first attempting a really heavy weight, you have a spotter, right? Who's going to, flick that bar for you.
Sure.
As you move through feeling accessible and accountable to that amount of weight. And that's for your safety. And typically you feel really supported by your spotter or your trainer, whomever is doing that. You don't feel restricted by them. You feel, oh, thank goodness they're there in case something goes wrong, because I'm still new at this. And so that feels supportive. So if you are being supported, you won't feel a tension around a guideline. If you're starting to feel like, boxed in by something, you may have outgrown that level of support.
So how could you translate that? Now, we've used different analogies: food, kids in school, driving.
I've used them all.
What about, think about, what do we deal with the most or predominantly? Relationships. How do you, in terms of being protected and restrictive in a relationship situation?
Ooh, good one. So if this comes down to communication. This really comes down to communication, because different couples, different relationships, whether that's between a parent and a child, or two friends, or someone in an intimate relationship, there's different levels of checking in. So some parents, when their children go off to college, would like their child to check in with them, say, once a day. I think I've texted my son once. And I don't even know how long he's been there, but I mean, he's a freshman in college, and it's just one of the really big benefits of being a Reiki master is I can always know where he is energetically. So I don't need him to constantly text me. That does not mean that we're not connected, but it just, that works for us. When you first start dating somebody, you start to have parameters about how often you're going to connect and whether that's going to be a phone conversation or texting. Some guys are really comfortable with texting and others are like, nope. Some want to talk on the phone and others are nope. And so if it doesn't work for you and it starts to feel annoying, then that's a sign that that's not going to work out in the long run. And that feels restricted. So for instance, lovely man, but he never wanted to talk on the phone. That just, I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of needing a little more frequent communication. And he said the most wonderful thing. He said, I wish I could be that guy, but I'm not. So I don't want to disappoint you. And it was beautifully said. And it was just, yeah, okay, here's what I need. Here's what you need. And it's not a good match. And so.
And I totally understand what you're saying, because I'm all about communication. And when it comes down to texting, if it's not fun, I know right away, bye-bye, in a nice way. Yeah. It's just not, it's got to be kind of fun, a little playful. Of course, there's going to be serious things that you got to deal with in the texting world. And of course, phone communication or direct communication, very important as well. But I know, what you just said, it's got to be, I expect something, it can't be just one word answers or just kind of like business, like,
yeah. Stop. Not much.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I would like to have a conversation. And I'm very adept at texting. I'm very adept at talking, whether it's in person or on the phone. So for me, if it feels icky, for lack of a better word, in my throat, that what I'm saying is being challenged, refuted, turned around. Oh, you said that a minute ago. Is that really what you mean? Kind of where I don't feel that what I'm saying is landing in a way that feels right. I'm all, yeah, that's a restriction, not a protection. Where I have been in situations where friends have just said, now's not a really good time for you to talk because you're a little volatile right now. So just hang tight, and that's a protection. My friends were knowing that I was just irate about something and that wasn't the right response for the situation. And so they just kind of shut me off. Whereas if I'm in a one-to-one conversation and I just keep getting shut off and shut off and shut off, that doesn't feel, that feels restrictive. Like somebody is trying to restrict what I have to say. And it also shows up in your heart chakra, where it doesn't feel like your heart's breathing. It just feels like your heart's really tense and heavy. And that feels restrictive. Whereas a heart that feels protected, it's like a beautiful hug. You just feel like you're melting into somebody's arms and they've got you no matter what. And you can feel their heartbeat, and that feels protective. And they're two very different feelings from the same chakra. or center, what energy center. And there's a reason that small children, when they feel, afraid or startled, or ashamed, whatever that big emotion is, they want to be held so that they feel protected. Whereas if you try to hug a child who does not want to be held, they flail their arms and they try to get out and they like wiggle down. They feel restricted, and that doesn't feel good for them. And
is what you described, Annie, with the heart feeling, is that like a gut feeling? Is it kind of the same thing?
They're very closely related. So your gut chakra, which is also called, the I keep forgetting the solar plexus because Roddy wanted it to be the lunar plexus. So anyway, your gut chakra, you almost feel sick to your stomach. It you hear it just doesn't sit right. You'll hear people say that just doesn't sit right with me. And that's more about trusting the interaction that's happening, the energy exchange that's happening either between you and another person or you in a situation. There are definitely times where you kind of walk into a situation and you're like, oh, nope, and you walk right out because your gut is telling you get out of there. And it's a different feeling. They're similar, but often when you get that gut reaction, you want the protected heart, and you want to go into a place where you feel protected. And you'll see people put their hand over their heart when they've been in a gut-wrenching situation. And so those two are really connected in terms of the energetic exchange. And it's a little different than your root chakra, which comes into your safety and being fully present. And when your root chakra feels constricted, you feel just disembodied, a little foggy, hazy, but really just disconnected, like you're almost out of your body and you're not really there. And that, when we talk about fight, flight, freeze, that is part of it, is your entire core is being threatened and constricted for whatever reason. And it could be a reaction to something that happened a long time ago. It could be ongoing stressors of financial worry, not communication, because that's more heart, but just not feeling secure in your world. And a lot of times with your root chakra, it's almost permanently clenched. And so you don't know what it feels like when it relaxes. Because if you have been under siege, where so many things are stressing you out, you tend to just brace for it, I guess is the best word. Like, okay, what's going to happen next? I'm going to brace for this because that'll hurt less. And so you forget to relax.
And which chakra was that? You said it.
Your root chakra, your first chakra, which is all about your safety.
So how do you know what that chakra should feel like?
That's a good one. It should feel like a warm bath.
I don't know what that feels like. I gotcha.
Like a perfect shower, the perfect jacuzzi. If you can imagine feeling head to toe perfectly relaxed, that's how you want your chakras to feel. And when they aren't feeling perfectly relaxed, and you can discern which one isn't feeling perfectly relaxed. And sometimes it's like the lower three are just like tight as a, as a line on a winch. And what you do is you take your hands and you put your hands, I'll do it up here, on that part of your body. And you just say, I release the tension. And you breathe. You gotta breathe. It's all about breathing, because what you're doing is you're pulling the stopper out of the balloon. If you've tied up a balloon, you're untying the balloon and letting that air out.
Wow.
And giving it permission to move again. Because when you blow up a balloon, that air is trapped. If you've ever popped a balloon, it comes whooshing out. So if you can, either your upper chakras, your lower chakras, your brow, if you can just physically touch where it is and breathe into it and just say, I release all tension. It really does help. It brings you back into the present. I do a series called Reiki to the Rescue. It's on my YouTube. And this month, I video all 4 of them on the same day. I just change outfits because you always video best on the full moon. But you do.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you do. And you can watch. But there's a lot of what you can do if one of your chakras is upset by an overload of energy. And it's specific breathing patterns on, find it and breathe into it 7 times. I don't know why it's 7, but it is.
It almost sounds like it's a, lack of a better description, like a reset button. Yes,
it's exactly a reset button. And sometimes you need to reset everything. And the way you do that is you find the soft spot on your head, like how babies have little soft spots. You find that and you push it for 7 seconds. And that is your the master reset button for all of your meridians. And so that's like the really big switch that shuts off your house, not just a little circuit breaker box. That's the big guns.
Wow. See, all this stuff I've never even heard of. I find this fascinating.
I know. I do a lot of studying. And the last little breathing thing, I did a lot of running from age 40 to 50, and then I just stopped. But when I was breathing, I knew I would set my pace by my breath, and I would, go in through the nose and out through the mouth. Because when you're breathing in New England or running in New England outside, you want to make sure that it's, warmed up air when it hits your lungs. And so had an injury, needed to go back to swimming. And in swimming, never try to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. It's completely opposite. So I'm like in there like, breathing matters.
Well, that's why they call it breathing work, because it is work depending on how you breathe.
Yeah, and it really makes a difference. And so in through your nose, out through your mouth, and making sure that it's your lower belly, not your shoulders flapping up and down, helps regulate you.
Wow. Super cool details today. And even the, just, what is it? Hands on the lower. You're doing it here
on the upper or your lower chakra. Mine's out of, screen. So I was just doing it on the upper chakra, and it's just, I release the tension.
I release the tension. Okay.
Yeah. Instead of trying to get all into why it's there, does it really matter? No, it doesn't. in the moment, you just want it released. And I mean, you can go through and try to figure it out. Like, oh, what was that a trigger from? You know, that's another part. But just releasing. And it's kind of like catching your breath after you've been crying. You know how.
Yeah.
And you can tell when somebody is out of that intense crying phase because they start to regulate their breathing again.
Wow. Thank you for today, because these are just simple things that we can do to reset ourselves, release the tension, come back to center, really come back to center, you know, essentially what it is. And like you just said, the, you know, final thought, what it is, you can't, sometimes it could be a toxic person in your life. You can't control them. Don't let them control you. If they have, time for the reset. redbootsreiki.com. You're there, you're available. You can do things virtually. And
check out my website because we just updated it and it's looking good. Yeah,
definitely will. And I'm intrigued by the videos come out better during a full moon.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Has nothing to do with the lighting. It's about the energy. Yes or no?
It's about the energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not going to forget that.
Yes, I do. I do a whole thing on that too.
Do you really?
Look for energy of the week. And if you look at when I'm in the Olivia energy, which is full moon, you will notice that the videos are a higher energy than say Mandy energy. I look the same. I look the same, but it's all about the energetic.
Yeah. And I know it appears that we're having maybe some internet connections here. No surprise. I mean, we're talking about energy and we're in a Mercury retrograde. I never see any problems until now, but
until now, I know.
That's what it is.
I know. Me too.
Yeah. Annie, always great talking with you. redbootsreiki.com. And really look forward next time to get together with you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.